It's probably the biggest impact, I think, or the biggest change the industry will see, probably since Print Nightmare. So it's an opportunity as well for resellers just to reposition themselves and go and talk to their end users and go like, this is coming, let's be ahead of it. What we need to avoid is that last minute rush of, right, this is coming, what do we do? I think it's a real good opportunity for resellers to talk to end users and just understand what their plan and their strategy is for the next couple of years and see how they can provide value to them.
I'm Michelle Ryder, editor of Print IT Reseller magazine. I'm here today with Stu Brookes, head of sales and channel at PaperCut. Good morning, Stu. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Michelle.
Lovely to have you with me today.
Our pleasure.
Looking forward to talking about all things PaperCut.
Indeed.
PaperCut has evolved from its traditional on-premise print management solution to a cloud-first, cloud-native platform that predominantly enables secure printing, particularly in today's hybrid workspace or workplace. In your opinion, is cloud-first adoption now mainstream?
Yeah, I think so. It's taken time, and there are certainly certain verticals that aren't yet ready or haven't made that approach. But I think the cloud only or cloud first certainly is where the majority of business and majority of customers are looking to move to. If they've not already moved, they certainly have their plans and are going in that direction. Something we're seeing at PaperCut with the launch of PaperCut Hive is now we're certainly seeing a real movement and an increase in the number of customers making that journey to the cloud space.
And then obviously you've mentioned PaperCut Hive. Is that product helping you to tap into new markets or new customer segments that perhaps the on-premise solution wasn't quite right for?
Yeah, absolutely, without a doubt. I think there's two. There's everyone, generally associates PaperCut with the education world, and we've been very strong. However, what we've seen with PaperCut Hive is an emergence of the lower end K6, K12 education space, schools that typically don't have any kind of on-prem infrastructure really, or outsource it to a third party, all of a sudden now with no need for print servers or on-prem hardware, they're now able to pick that up. So actually our biggest vertical for PaperCut Hive is the K6 to K12 space, and we've seen a real drive in either independent schools, multi-academy trusts, foundation trusts, etc. So certainly it's opened up an education space that maybe we weren't as prevalent in before. And then the other one, I use a term micro SMB, which is the 1 to 3, 1 to 4 device customers. Again, people that typically didn't even have an IT function, could be 30, 40, 50, maybe 100 users. No on-premise hardware, no servers, etc. So again, print management on-prem wasn't really an option for them. But now, again, the emergence of cloud, and not only the emergence of secure print necessarily, but actually more print enablement, just making print easy, maybe controlling just the drivers and queues in a direct print environment. So between sort of the K6, K12 and I'll use it a micro SMB, certainly two very newer markets that we were prevalent in before, but seem to have adopted cloud faster.
And actually you've made a valid point about the sort of the 1 to 5 user segment. Obviously, cloud's beauty is its agility, its flexibility, its scalability from 1 to whatever infinite number. So that's probably why it's more attractive to those micro SMB.
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt.
From a reseller's perspective, because obviously you're a channel organisation, what are the main challenges around selling cloud versus traditional on-prem management? Particularly, I suppose, around infrastructure readiness. Yeah,
I think there's probably two aspects that we've seen. One of them, I think, is maybe a bit more unique to PaperCut. The second is certainly a wider industry challenge. I think first, from a PaperCut perspective, I think when a lot of customers want cloud, people go, okay, here's a cloud solution. What we've certainly seen challenge with is people go, well, I want PaperCut MF and I'm expecting to put that into a cloud environment. And we've been very keen to stress that PaperCut Hive and PaperCut MF are two different products. One is 20, 25 years in development. The other one is 5 or 6, a little bit longer than that. And there are people who just wanted to go, well, actually, I just want to lift my PaperCut MF and just drop it into, and I just want Hive to do exactly the same. And we stress that they're two different products. They've also got two different feature sets. So that's one challenge we've had to have, is work with resellers and customers to understand not every PaperCut MF customer is necessarily a transition to PaperCut Hive. So we've worked from that angle. I think secondly, and this is probably what, competitors to us and everyone in the market is seeing, is it's a very different sell. Print management in an on-prem world was a relatively simple, straightforward sale. Drop it over the top of an existing infrastructure, and all works well. You get into a cloud space, and actually, the majority of the time, it's actually an infrastructure removal project, and we are a byproduct of it. So it's a customer going, I need to remove my print service. I want to get rid of my on-prem Active Directory and now move into Azure or Google Workspace, whichever one I'm using. And therefore, actually, it's not just about dropping in print management. It's about understanding the IT infrastructure in place. And certainly, I think some of the challenges we've seen in the industry are maybe a lack of understanding at times of actually how that infrastructure will impact print. So you need to understand, how are networks segmented? How does network flow? What ports are open if you've got a multi-site environment, for example? So there's a lot more of an infrastructure concept of it. And I spoke to a UK manufacturer. I spoke to their head of pre-sales, and they said, no, whenever we sell cloud, and they sell PaperCut Hive, they sell a couple of others as well. They said they actually address it as more of an IT conversation and an infrastructure sale than it is, here's, 35 devices and here's some print management software to help you manage it. It is now a conversation where people need to understand network infrastructure a lot more to have a successful transition and a successful implementation.
So is it more of a professional services piece from a reseller's perspective, or does it require them to upskill in some way?
I think it's more of it's a slightly more consultative sell. I think, go back to, you could sell PaperCut MF, and within reason, you could pretty much drop it into anywhere and it would work. And now you need to understand, what's the customer's IT policies? Is it a zero trust environment, and what's their definition of zero trust? Is there, user identity? Is it done in the cloud or is it done on-prem? How does traffic flow across a network, within the organization? So I think you do have to be a little bit more savvy, I think, when you're understanding the best product for the best fit, for example.
I know from talking to many resellers, one of the biggest pain points around print management is driver management and print queues. PaperCut products, sort of Hive in particular, does simplify that for IT teams, doesn't it? Yeah,
definitely. And it's a relatively recent trend, I think, in the EMEA market. It's probably more mature from a US perspective. But, with the emergence of, Microsoft bringing out Universal Print, then we've got a Windows protected print and, the potential move to what is going to be the end of a third-party print driver in a couple of years, if you believe Microsoft's timelines. It certainly started to raise questions, and certainly we're having a lot more conversations with OEMs and resellers about understanding the implication of that at multiple levels. It's about understanding, the impact of the new, the Windows PSAs, which are effectively what will replace drivers. It's about understanding IPP and IPP infra and how OEMs are implementing that at a device level to make sure that legacy devices can be supported in a WPP environment as well. So from a PaperCut MF perspective, we're working closely with the OEMs at a Japanese level and a development level to make sure that we can help those legacy customers who've got those devices that maybe won't support WPP from a hardware level, that we can support them from a PaperCut level and therefore support the OEM and not necessarily have to force customers globally to be ripping out legacy devices that maybe they don't need to or don't want to. And then there's also that element of, even when print drivers go away, there are still a need for print queues in the world. It's just that they're going to be a slightly different function. They might be IPP based, for example, or PSA based. So within PaperCut Hive, we're starting to see a lot more interest when it comes to interestingly customers going, actually, I'm quite happy with a direct IP printing solution. I don't need secure print. Maybe I'm a micro SMB business, for example. Secure print isn't as important, but I've moved to the cloud. My user identity is in the cloud. I just need people to walk into an office, go file print, and not have to need a call to a support desk, not have to give them admin rights to download drivers or whatever it may be. So that notion of print enablement, we've seen really pick up. And, in fact, we're seeing customers spend more on print enablement than maybe they've historically spent on secure print. We're seeing, a couple of use cases as a UK school who actually have used it to push out the print queues for the printers they've actually still got in all their different classrooms. Don't need any secure print function, but just want to make sure that if a student needs to print or a teacher needs to print, they print at the point of time, and it just magically happens. We've got larger enterprise organizations, that maybe have a few hundred sites around the country, only 1 or 2 devices, again, small little practices who go, look, I don't need secure print. It's only 5 or 6 staff in the office, but they move between offices, and I need to make sure that when they need to print, they can. So I think there's been a movement back to making printing easy without necessarily needing the full secure print aspect of things.
And you've touched on 2 things that sort of just struck a chord then: Windows protected print and universal print. Do you think that will impact, or how do you think that will impact the print market?
Really interesting. I think there's still an element of watch this space. Obviously, Universal Print has been out for a few years now, I think it is. No, I personally haven't come across it much, haven't seen people talk about it much. I think the major impact, as we all know, is going to be on WPP. And I think the impact of Print Nightmare made Microsoft realise, actually, we need to do something. And this is the output, or the outcome, I should say, of Print Nightmare, is Microsoft going, right, we're going to remove these third-party print drivers. We're going to control the whole print stack. And I think for us as an industry, there are multiple threats in different levels. The end user impact. Certainly I know of one end user that was quite intrigued by it, turned on Windows protected print, and it deleted and removed every single print driver and queue they'd got. And when they turned it off, they went, it hasn't come back. And we said, no, it doesn't come back.
Oh.
So that reseller had to work with them. And I think people are still getting their head around actually what it means when you do that. So I think there's that aspect of educating users what WPP is, what it isn't, what it does and what it doesn't do. And certainly whenever we're talking to resellers at the moment, it's talking to them about that, and not educating, that would be the wrong word, but making sure that they're aware of what it means and how it impacts them. And as we've said, even if print drivers go away, there is still a need for those print queues and, the print management, print enablement vendors to provide some value and some service to it. I think the other aspect to be careful of is WPP is great in a Windows environment, but how do you work if I've also got MacBooks or Chromebooks or Linux as well? So it's that conscious aspect of, there is a risk, obviously, of let's use the term of a Microsoft lock-in, but if you're in a multi-operating system estate, you need to understand that actually WPP isn't a single solution that will fix everything for you. You still need to provide that print solution for some of the other platforms and other vendor operating systems out there as well.
Presumably that plays to your strengths in non-Windows environments, because obviously Hive and PaperCut MF are fully compatible, particularly within Google Chromebook settings, which a lot of the schools, the education sector tends to use. So perhaps potentially has a good impact for you.
Yeah, it's certainly, that's how we've always positioned ourselves as a vendor neutral organisation. We've always talked about, we'll support any embedded platform, any server operating system, any client operating system, any form of print generating device, whether it be a workstation, a laptop, a mobile, an iPhone, Windows Phone, whatever it may be. And that will very much continues to be our path as far as PaperCut Hive goes, is that, look, if you've got maybe you've got a modern print device that supports WPP, but you've also got legacy devices that don't support WPP, we can help you bridge that gap between them. And certainly that's the conversation we're having with the OEMs. You know, if you've got that mix of Windows devices and MacBooks and Chromebooks and whatever else may be out there, again, we can help you just manage that. What is a complex vendor environment with just that single interface?
Sounds like potentially there's opportunity for resellers there to get stickier with their customers and help solve that pain point, that problem that the new regime will present.
But it gives, you know, there's lots of opportunity, and I think it's probably the biggest impact, I think, or the biggest change the industry will see, probably since Print Nightmare. You know, actually even before that, to be honest with you, because this is an outcome of Print Nightmare. So it's an opportunity as well for resellers just to reposition themselves and go and talk to their end users and go like, this is coming, let's be ahead of it. You know, I think, top of my head, I think Windows said, you know, the end of third-party print drivers was 2027, I think it is. You know, and what we need to avoid is that last-minute rush of, right, this is coming, what do we do? I think it's a real good opportunity for resellers to talk to end users and just understand what their plan and their strategy is for the next couple of years and see how they can provide value to them, you know, with or without PaperCut, but how they can position themselves as, you know, more thought leaders within the industry and what's happening before people end up in a bind. And
particularly in today's climate, I think what tends to be happening is customers are extending MPS contracts rather than doing this whole rip out, replace, refresh, upgrade process, which, you know, is good news in some ways, good news for the environment, but perhaps less so for resellers who are wanting to obviously keep margin revenue running. This perhaps gives them another opportunity to go in and talk and have a new conversation and keep that relationship strong.
Yeah, very much. I think, you know, right now we're in a space where everyone needs to understand how they can add value. And certainly, as you say, you know, I think there's a lot of end users going, especially sure in that post-COVID environment where they go, look, I've got loads of mileage left on my devices. I'm just going to roll over. We've probably seen, you know, we've seen that impact and that extension of actually, I'm just going to roll over 12 or 24 months. So at a time when the industry's looking at how can we go back to end users, how can we position ourselves as a partner rather than just a supplier, I think this is a great opportunity for people to talk to. And, you know, their end users might go, look, yep, we know all about that. And they can work with them on what that transition journey or that transition plan may look like. There may be end users who go, actually, I didn't know that. I need to put that in the back of my head. Can you help me? What does that look like? And as I said, that maybe helping them with legacy devices and going, look, when this happens, those devices won't be supported, but this is how we can help you support them moving forward to save end users having to rip and replace legacy devices that maybe they don't need to.
The market is challenging at the moment. You know, we've seen consolidation, collaboration, things are changing, technology is moving so fast, and I think it's great that the cloud's obviously advancing and accelerating, and the opportunities and the agility, the flexibility, the scalability that brings is really positive and brings a sort of positive impact to an industry where, you know, it's all doom and gloom about declining print volumes. So it's really good to hear what PaperCut's doing and to hear your thoughts on what the current issues and challenges are.
And I think there's a great opportunity personally for resellers now to talk about different things. You know, as you said, that you know, the marketing volumes are declining, units are declining as well at times, but there's still plenty of value. There's still plenty of need out there. You know, we look at education, we look at healthcare. They still have needs to print, despite, you know, the UK government's, you know, attempts to go digital in the NHS. There is still a heavy print environment. And I think when you look at advising customers on, you know, WPP and IPP and what that means, you know, when you talk to customers about, actually, I can add more value around helping you, Mr. Customer, with, you know, drivers and queue deployment, so you don't have to worry about group policy and log-on scripts and third-party products, etc. I think there's a lot of value to add for resellers. And again, if people are moving to digitization, you know, how can you help them from a capture perspective as well? So there's a lot of opportunity as well to continue to provide value.
Thank you, Stu. It's been really interesting talking, finding out more. Thank you very much for joining me today.
My pleasure. Thank you very much, Michelle.